Hello, thank you so much for having me. And it's been, I was thinking earlier, it's always a bit of a double-edged sword going after other people's showcases, because you go, oh God, that's brilliant. Yeah, get loads of ideas. And also, am I going to be duplicating? What am I saying? But anyway, absolutely fantastic. It was so great to hear from Paul, Matt and Kat as well. And hopefully you'll see some common themes in some of the things that I'm going to talk about. So if I could just go on to the next slide. Please. Yeah, fab. Thank you. So yes, my name's Holly Rae. I am head of strategy and design at Stockport Council. My team includes strategy, policy, community-based colleagues with skills across engagement, co-design, business analysis, delivery management, and a range of different design skills. And I, along with colleagues across data and tech services, jointly lead digital in Stockport. As Matt said a moment ago, I'm not techie either, but particularly passionate about about how we design with and for people, and I guess how we embed digital across all change and strategy development. And it's really about that readiness for the expectation and needs of our citizens now and for the future. And never has that been more demonstrated and more important in the last four or 5 months. Just in terms of Stockport and who we are and where we're at, in case you don't know us, we are one of 10 Greater Manchester local authorities up north. It's a bit drizzly here today, don't know if it is elsewhere. There's about 280,000 living in Stockport, and I guess the sort of challenge for us, sort of reflecting on Paul's comment earlier, is we've got a real mixed population across Stockport, some of the most kind of affluent areas in the country and some of our kind of most deprived as well, facing significant kind of challenges around financial exclusion. And I guess that really presents us with a kind of well, not a challenge, but certainly a consideration in terms of how we address and how we approach digital in Stockport and what that means for the borough of Stockport, not just the council. And I guess an important stat for us and a signifier of that is that whilst 87% of our population are comfortable and relatively confident with digital, 13% aren't. They've not accessed digital, don't feel comfortable with it, and that is something that I guess the pandemic over the last 4 or 5 months has really shone a light on in terms of how incredibly important it is to make sure that we are designing in an inclusive way for all parts of our community. And I will be interested to see how that's shifted, and that's something we're certainly looking at in Stockport to understand better. So we signed the Digital Declaration back in 2018, and I think this discussion is really timely, and it's really timely to reflect upon it. And I was looking through the blog that we sort of published at the time about why we signed it, and it was really for us about making that very public commitment both to our residents, our partners, and I guess to colleagues across the sector as well, to commit to really designing and reimagining our services with people at the heart of that design. Recognising that many of our services have evolved, they've responded to the technical capabilities available at the time, legislation, and actually really to be kind of ready for the internet era, we really needed to really think about how people access support, what is it they need, and what is it we need to think about and design differently. I think it's that kind of commitment to collaborating with each other, about being smart and open with our innovation and working across local authorities. And as I said, sort of mentioned already, about being digital enabled and ready, reaching throughout our organisation and not just kind of tech for tech's sake. And as we've sort of said, all of these things sort of feel incredibly important now, if not more heightened, given the last few months in how we've come together in local areas, come together as a sector and responded to those kind of unprecedented circumstances. And I think I'll go through some of our learning over this journey, but also how that's stood us in good stead for the last sort of last four months or so. So we just move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's just a quick overview of our digital journey. We started as I guess a digital programme, very much kind of council focused and sort of internally focused originally, and as with many other colleagues who've spoken already, really focusing on getting the foundations right, whether that's the kind of technical foundations or the skills, the culture. We built reusable technical capabilities similar to those that Kat was sharing earlier on. Built kind of and designed new key corporate products like My Account, Local Directory. reviewed and revised our kind of website, launching that very much at the early kind of stages of our programme, we rolled out new remote working devices, integrated our data sets. And I guess and I do think it's really important and I think that's what's great about the declaration, is recognising that it is that journey. It is about getting the foundations right and building and continuing to grow and evolve. And I guess that's, that our kind of sort of more recent focus has really been about redesigning how we work, looking at redesign of services, looking at where we can improve outcomes, be more efficient as well. Looking at tech-enabled care, rolling out our Digital Inclusion Alliance, which I'll touch upon in a moment, in a bit later as well. And I guess more recently, our kind of response to COVID, like many other colleagues have touched upon, that's really involved looking at kind of much more kind of expanded and rolling out of cloud-based working and remote working, virtual collaboration. How do we design new services and designing new services with our voluntary community sector, with our workforce, with businesses, and creating it's been sort of transformation at speed with new digitally enabled services, and investing and strengthening our infrastructure to ensure that we're more robust going forward. And if we just go on to the next slide, because what I'm going to touch upon, I guess, is a little bit of a couple of areas really that are just, in terms of how we've approached digital in Stockport, and how the declaration has enabled that, or sort of shaped our approach. And I think what excited us most about the declaration, and certainly what excites me the most about how we, sort of working differently and working in and thinking for the future, is genuinely about how we design with and for people, and as I said, reimagining with people the future of public services. We've been really kind of looking at how we can open up those conversations, making sure we're having more habitual conversations, building new skills and approaches to designing with people. So whether that's kind of the prospective kind of foster parents that are up there on our screen, who helped, along with other kind of prospective foster parents in Stockport, help look at how we design and grow our kind of foster care community, recognising that having a stable and secure home was really important for us. It was a really important kind of outcome that we wanted to address in Stockport, as I'm sure with many others. And on a really kind of core level, looking at what mattered to them when they were going through that process, looking at the questions that they asked, looking at how we were responding, how do we make sure our digital process was clearer, how did we make sure that linked in with some of the training and advice and guidance and peer support that was available and out there. And I guess, other examples there, we looked at how, designing our kind of directorate with local kind of self-identified members of our community who wanted to help us go on that journey to improve and design a better product. And more recently, in our COVID response, working with our food banks to design new kind of digital processes and customer journeys for people to access support through the food bank. And their support in designing that has been invaluable, both in terms of their kind of ownership of that process, but also the quality of the feedback and the better quality design that we've come out with as a result of their input. We've been working with colleagues as well, and you can see on the screen the Family Context and Children's Services, which was one of our kind of successfully funded projects from the local digital fund, and that was working with social workers to help us understand how we could bring together the story of kind of children and young people so that they could better support families, and that was working with our fantastic colleagues in Leeds as well as others to design that. And I guess also trying to understand the experience of people. The picture that is there on your right hand side, which is very busy and probably deliberately so, and you can see a bit more in the blog that we've done about it, was the kind of the feedback from a family of their experience of accessing kind of services and support, and that you can see the range of different services that are wrapped around them. And that's something, I guess, about for us to reflect and work with families and individuals about how we better join up and better design with them. And I guess finally, in terms of designing for, we launched our Digital Inclusion Alliance, working with local community organisations and businesses to develop digital skills and confidence. We've trained over 8,000 local digital champions, and they have been absolutely fantastic during this kind of period as well. Having, supporting one-to-one kind of digital skills courses, as well as supporting the voluntary and community sector as they move some of their support online and into remote working as well. And I think what's fantastic for us and what's really important for us and special about our Digital Inclusion Alliance is that is something we're genuinely doing jointly with local community organisations that we are a part of and as an equal partner. So if we just move on to the next slide. And as I say, I guess that really does lead on to, as others have said, really look at how we collaborate to innovate. That's collaborating with other local authorities. I've mentioned Leeds, but we've also worked really closely with Essex. Don't know if there's any colleagues on this call from Essex, but that learning and collaboration has genuinely been two ways. Working on sharing our kind of platform around our website, but also sharing learning around design. Working closely with our colleagues across GM, with the Combined Authority, Manchester and Wigan, and we've run a number of successfully funded kind of local digital funded projects, which are kind of, you can see squeezed onto the side of this slide on the right hand side, and that's included looking at how we join up children's services data, Stockport Family Context Project, as I've already mentioned, as well as working with GM colleagues about information sharing as well. But I think I guess for me that kind of collaboration is so incredibly important, because I think it's both getting the ideas and ideas from other people, but it is about how we're smart with the time and the resources and the ideas that we've got, and our kind of collaboration with our communities and residents, with GDS and with the local digital team have been really important over this entire period. So if we just move on to the next slide. And I guess throughout this whole period, really focusing on growing our skills and experience, and like the speakers before me mentioned, we've developed and brought in new skills into our organisation. So new skills around design and business analysis and delivery management, for example, product ownership. We've accessed some of the training as well that's been available, which has been really invaluable in terms of being able to broaden those skill sets, but also I guess that access to a wider community as well, access to Slack channels for people to connect and communicate and share skills, but also to develop communities of practice that go beyond our immediate organisation and are genuinely kind of national kind of communities of practice. And the sort of training we've accessed has been around kind of entry-level user experience and service design, digital leadership sessions as well, which our some of our senior councillors and senior leaders have attended, agile teams training, and looking at how we run similar sessions within our organisation. And I guess for me, and I think it touches on kind of Matt's point earlier, it has really been about embedding a culture of coaching and learning, sharing and spreading skills through lunch and learns, pair writing, and I guess learning by doing as well. Finding those interested and excited people and supporting them to continue to be excited and to have the skills to apply it in their own area. So we just go on to the next slide. Thank you. And we have been working out in the open. We've got a blog sharing our journey. We've had open days and meetups, and leading by example through physical stand-ups, which you can see on the previous to COVID, but also those have now moved to open virtual stand-ups, which are sit-downs, but virtual meetings, again sharing kind of learning, and that commitment to transparency and openness. And as the Minister said at the beginning, this is really about permeating across how we work and really kind of demonstrating a new organisational culture for the future. So we just go on to the next slide, which I think I'll make my final slide, and just because I know I'm running out of time, and I guess really this has enabled us, and I guess has been about readying and enabling us to respond. And like many others on this call, this has been about stepping up new digital services at speed, transformation at speed, new content on our website, and never has kind of content design it's been so incredibly important, but spinning up new services, reshaping our workforce, working in more kind of remote but connected environment. Digital champions that's been supporting us during this entire period, both with the community and with the sectors I've already mentioned, and building out kind of webinars around readiness for COVID, readiness for different ways of working, which have really been about supporting our communities to respond and to live and to connect during this incredibly difficult time. So I think those were the main points I was going to say, and it was more just a couple of points for the future, which I think we'll come on to anyway in the later part of this discussion, won't we? So thank you.
Thanks, Holly. I just have a couple of questions for you. What is something you want to take forward as a result of how you've responded to COVID?
I think the thing for me that's been really exciting in terms of how we've responded has been, and we've had good relationships across our communities and across our organisation, but it's how we continue to nurture that collaboration and co-design. So that's the thing I really want to see kind of going forward. I think the way that people have come together to share and to innovate and to respond has been absolutely inspiring. It's been incredible, and I think for me it's how do we maintain that ongoing collaboration, which in some ways has been easier in a remote environment because it's easy for people to dial in, to check in, to put a chat, respond through Teams or however, but maintaining that as a really core principle of how we work and how we change going forward, I think it's really important for myself.
Thank you. And how do you promote the declaration internally?
So we've obviously promoted via our blog. It's we're open about kind of having shared the declaration. It was we at the time of sharing it, signing it. We shared that with elected members and with colleagues in the council. I think what we've been doing since then has really been about embedding the principles and linking back to the principles that are embedded within the declaration. So I guess living the declaration and how we've been responding.
Thank you. And how are you continuing to work with your community and other councils in this new COVID world?
So with our communities, a couple of different ways. So we have had at the beginning 3 times a week, now twice a week, virtual forums with members of our voluntary and community sector, where we've been sharing information, collaborating, and I guess having spin out kind of meetings and virtual meetings. And that's included code, and that's really where our coronavirus kind of support hub emerged from, was that collaboration, virtual collaboration. We've done the same with our mutual aid networks and those mutual aid networks who've been keen to collaborate in that sort of way. And I guess what we've also been exploring is looking at how we continue to do kind of user experience testing in a virtual manner kind of going forward. But we've been using Teams, we've been using new different software like Miro boards, which have been really helpful in helping us design together kind of during this time. And with internally within our workforce, like a couple of colleagues already spoke about, continuing to use our kind of Teams chats and functions to kind of create safe and shared spaces for people to check in and to collaborate. So all been out in the open, but through regular contact. And I was looking at something recently, and I do think there's some learning here for us as a local authority about how we learn from organisations that are have been remote working by design, and that is looking at how we almost over communicate. What's the different ways of practice? How do we make sure we don't just move to millions of emails or millions of Teams chats, but use the communication tools that we've got effectively? I wouldn't say we've nailed that one, but that's something certainly I think we need to learn from in terms of how we continue to connect.
Thank you. And next question of how do you get permission to collaborate with so many different councils and people?
It's an interesting question around permission, isn't it? I think I've not seen permission for us to collaborate with other councils as being a particular issue for us over the certainly not over the past couple of years. I think that's really about I mean, we, as working as part of Greater Manchester, we collaborate closely anyway, and I think it's really about what collaboration has meant for us. But I guess, you know, we've been using Teams, we've been using virtual meetings, we've been using kind of our leadership is really bought in and close to our digital journey, leading our digital journey at kind of at a council leader level to our chief executive, recognising that is a way that we can be smart with our resources and our time as well. And in terms of with our communities, and I guess culturally in some areas, kind of engaging early and in a different way is always going to take a little bit more time. There are different kind of parts of our organisation that are further on that journey than others, and that's not a criticism, that's just a reflection of the different types of relationships that we've had with our communities. And for me, that is just about demonstrating the value of that early collaboration, and I think that's really what we've been focusing on doing.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time, so I'm gonna move on. Thank you again, all of our fantastic speakers, Kat, Paul, Matt, and Holly. It's been so great hearing your story and all the different ways that you've lived the declaration.